What challenges do food manufacturers face in sourcing ingredients? Can we order small pack sizes and quantities? How to be innovative and limit the R&D costs at the same time? Do we have competitive prices for ingredients? Are we covering demand, costs, and resolving supply issues? Listen to our food ingredients experts discuss the biggest questions facing buying food ingredients today. Welcome to One to Taste Talks Food Ingredients.
Welcome to another episode of One to Taste Talks Food Ingredients, where we explore the latest trends and challenges in the world of food ingredients. I'm your host, Andrada Spătariu, and today we're addressing a pressing issue: sodium reduction in food applications. Salt enhances flavor, but too much sodium can lead to serious health problems. The World Health Organization aims to cut global sodium intake by 30% by 2030, a goal that places significant responsibility on food manufacturers. The challenge is clear. How can we reduce sodium without sacrificing taste and product quality? In this episode, I speak with experts from our trusted suppliers, NuTek and Nedmag, who share practical insights into their innovative salt replacer solutions. The conversation moves into the academia world, where our guest shares findings from her sodium reduction research in bakery. These interviews are packed with valuable information to inspire and guide your sodium reduction effort. So let's get to it. Hi, Steve, and thank you for joining today's discussion.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, Andrada. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's do a bit of a different introduction so our audience get to know you a little bit. Let's imagine you're on the cover of a top food industry magazine. What does it say about you?
Oh, okay. So going from my first podcast, to this food magazine is a pretty quick progression. But maybe I'd say, maybe the front cover would say something along the lines about my passion for helping food companies improve and produce healthier products. Maybe the article inside would detail, my journey, from my academics in food science to my 24-year career developing products in the meat and poultry space to now my role at NuTek, where I really enjoy helping product developers, across the globe in a different food segments solve their challenges.
That sounds to me like a very interesting read. Of course, the topic of the day is sodium reduction. And there's all sorts of methods to achieve lower sodium levels, and one of them is gradual reduction. Are there any downsides to it as opposed to other approaches?
Yeah, certainly. One approach to sodium reduction could be, reducing the salt without replacing it, and quite frankly, that's going to be, an impractical approach. Just because when you think about salt, we know it plays a key role in food systems. Everything, from flavor to food safety to quality attributes and even the economics of the product. So, removing salt and not replacing its characteristics is going to have a significant impact to those areas and really shouldn't be overlooked. Obviously that product has to taste really good, or consumers are just simply not going to buy it. Functionally, taking salt out without replacing it is going to have a negative impact to the quality, perhaps the shelf life and food safety of the product. And then it could have a definite negative impact economically, especially if you're talking about like meat and protein systems where, protein extraction becomes so important for processing yields. And I would say furthermore, just, taking salt out, you're really missing the opportunity to add potassium back to the product, which is a widely underconsumed nutrient.
You mentioned quite a few different things here about the sodium reduction approaches. I'm curious, in your experience at NuTek, what are some of the most common challenges in sodium reduction and how can they be addressed?
Yeah, so certainly, it can be a challenge because, again, salt is playing so many different key roles in food. So really finding a solution that's going to check all those boxes for those characteristics is going to be really important. So potassium salt is really a great candidate to replace salt. It has a salty taste. It has the chloride component for functionality in food systems. and furthermore, contains potassium, which again, is an underconsumed nutrient that helps counteract the blood pressure raising effects of sodium. And we know a healthier balance of sodium and potassium in the diet is really shown to reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease, which is really the whole goal of sodium reduction regulations in the first place. The challenge with potassium salt, in its standard basic or commodity type form, is it can, while it has a salty taste, it can contribute a bitter, metallic off flavor and aftertaste, which can really limit the amount you can use without getting some off flavors. So that really limits how much sodium you can reduce. And some manufacturers may, address this by adding bitter blockers or flavor modulators, which would add, complexity to the ingredient statement and certainly cost to the product. And because of this, that probably, leans into, maybe the biggest challenge is really that customer and consumer misconception that, lower sodium must mean, I need to compromise and now have less flavor. I'm going to have off flavors, lower quality, or just not be cost effective.
Yeah, it's very common to encounter misconceptions about certain ingredients or techniques, but I like it that it sounds like you have the answer. So, can you tell me what is unique about NuTek solutions and how are these challenges you mentioned addressed?
Yeah, so NuTek was founded nearly 20 years ago, and our founders set out to help reduce sodium for a healthier food supply, and they really look for ways to address that flavor component for potassium salt. We created a patented washing and drying process that eliminates that bitterness associated with potassium. Without having to use, expensive bitter blockers or flavor modulators. So that really enables, for significant reduction of sodium with a simple one-for-one replacement, all while delivering on the taste and functionality that you'd expect from a regular salt. And because we solve for that flavor, it is easy for developers to use because they don't need to spend time, adjusting formulations to add additional ingredients to mask bitterness. So, we have a range of sodium reduction solutions in our salts category. One being our Salt for Life, which is our advanced potassium salts without bitterness. We also have products in our Beyond Sea Salt line, where we balance marine source potassium and sodium salts into a single sea salt crystal with less sodium.
Okay, now that you mentioned some of your solutions, what are key considerations when integrating them into current formulations?
Yeah, so the approaches there and considerations. Obviously we can go through two avenues. One, both through new product development or through reformulating existing products. And I would say key considerations are, we start tackling a project would be, what is the current sodium content? What is the salt content of the product from a percentage standpoint? Because we know, of course, sodium can come through other ingredients such as sodium nitrite cures for meat systems. And then what's the target nutritional profile or reduction that we're looking to achieve? The application method is going to be important on how that salt is used. Is it going, into a brine for a tumble marinated meat or poultry product? Is it going, directly into a dough for a bakery type item? Or is it used, into a topical seasoning for snacks? And then, really kind of the third question or consideration would be, what is the salt function in the product? Is it being used for both flavor and functionality? Flavor again is always going to be first and foremost from the consumer's perspective. So, selecting that NuTek solution that delivers that saltiness without bitterness is going to be key. And we also know from a functionality standpoint, since these are salts, they will have that same functionality as salt. Whether that's texture in a bread product, food safety, shelf life, processing yields. So those items will have that same functionality. If the salt's used just for flavor, for example, those Salt for Life and Beyond sea salt items will be excellent options. But another option to consider would be our NuSavor natural flavor solution, which is one of our newer innovations, where we create this natural flavor through fermentation and cooking techniques. And while it's not a salt, we show that it can actually increase the salty flavor or saltiness perception in products by really elevating umami and savory flavors with 85% less sodium than salt.
Wow, that's impressive. And throughout this discussion, you've mentioned consumers that if they don't like the taste, they will not buy it. Um, have you conducted any consumer studies to confirm the acceptance of your solutions?
Yes, many third-party sensory panels, both through trained panels and then large consumer panels on broader population. And what we'll typically do for these panels is we'll present the panelists the samples blind. So one will be a full sodium version with the standard sodium or salt content. And then we'll also present a reduced sodium version where we're just simply replacing the sodium salt with the NuTek solution. So consumers cannot detect any differences in the flavor, aftertaste, texture, overall acceptability between those standard full sodium products and then the reduced sodium products with NuTek. In some cases, up to 50% reduction. And then NuSavor, likewise, we've done panels to validate its effectiveness, showing that it can, from the consumer's perspective, increase that salty flavor with less sodium. Plant-based applications with NuSavor become interesting too, because we've also shown that you can actually significantly decrease off flavors commonly associated with plant proteins. Whether that's a beany off note or grainy off flavor. And these panels we've done across just all types of commonly consumed foods that are really the targets for a lot of these sodium reduction regulations and programs. From bakery applications to snacks, soups, sauces, processed meats, dairy, and then again plant-based proteins as well.
That sounds great and approved by the consumer. And that's the most important in the end, right? I have one last question for you. When looking ahead, what direction do you think sodium reduction is taking?
Oh, that's a great question. So, yeah, I would say, obviously, we continue to see sodium reduction gain momentum on a global basis, and quite simply, it's the topic is not going anywhere. Regulatory pressures continue to increase and expand globally, as we've seen with front of pack labeling regulations, WHO sodium reduction benchmarks, for example. So that kind of, we see those pressures on the regulatory front. And then more on the proactive front, we do see more and more companies really being proactive with their social and sustainability efforts to improve the health and nutrition of their products. So obviously the good news is, NuTek has the solutions to reduce sodium successfully, and obviously we're happy to help support your customers in these efforts.
Thank you very much, Steve, for sharing your expertise. I'm sure these tips are very useful for our audience. And let's bring this healthier products to the market, right?
Absolutely. All for it. So thank you again, Andrada, for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you both for joining today's discussion. I'm really curious to explore sodium reduction together.
Thanks for the invite.
Thank you very much for the invite, and thanks for having us today.
Okay, so let's get to know each other a little bit. And actually, let's do it a little bit differently. Let's imagine you're on the cover of a top food industry magazine. What does it say about you?
Okay, let me start. First, of course, let me introduce myself. I'm Jeroen Kramer. We are from Nedmag, a Dutch magnesium company. When I see myself on a magazine on a few years, I hope to be noted that I've been an important factor in getting our magnesium chloride on the table as a sodium reduction mineral. And that's something we're working hard on.
Okay, let's introduce myself. I'm Willem-Jan Bakker. I'm the food business developer of Nedmag and working about 4 years now on food applications. And I hope to join the photo on the food cover magazine.
All right. Okay. So let's dive into it and see what is inside the magazine then. I know Nedmag has been active in the industrial and feed industries. And of course, today's discussion point is sodium reduction in the food industry. Can you explain a little bit what is the connection with the topic?
Yes, of course I can. Well, as with many companies nowadays, we are going through a transition. We're trying to operate more clean. We're trying to lower our CO2 footprint. In the past, our products, mainly magnesium products, have been used in industrial and feed markets. We have been active in the food market already for over 15 years with our calcium chloride. And in this transition, we have now established that why do we not use the magnesium chloride that we take from the ground, our natural, pure source of magnesium, to the food market, which is something we are now working on. And as part of that, we have established a new brand called Pure Health and Earth, which will incorporate all of our environmental and food products. But as of now, it's only incorporating our magnesium chloride food grade crystals, which we have brought to market in February of this year. So it is now readily available, and we are basically good to go. We've been testing for many years and with trial products already, and now we actually are putting it into the market.
Okay, so this is quite fresh and it's ready to use since February. So let's jump straight into some practical examples where magnesium chloride has been successfully utilized. What important factors should food developers keep in mind when considering this ingredient?
We started a bakery project 2.5 years ago where the goal was to reduce sodium between 30 and 60%. And we're now in the stage that we started trials on industrial bakery, the pilot project. And we are gaining about 40% sodium reduction. And we have now to test that on industrial level. Looks very promising. After this pilot stage, with the right composition of potassium, sodium, and magnesium, we are then in the way to start the consumer tests. We did the first consumer test where we had to choose between 3 compositions. And in this pilot stage, there is the final composition which goes to the consumer tests, and then it all can be finalized to the bakery salt 2.0. And that is one example which we did trials on bakery level. And another example is cheese.
Yeah, cheese is something I can tell you something about. Besides cheese, we, of course, when we started, looked at a lot of applications, and well, we quickly determined cheese as one of the applications, or one of the products that really contains a lot of salt, as most people know. So that's why it became top of our list to look and see if we can do anything in sodium reduction. Well, the cheese I'm talking about is, of course, the Veendammer, named after the place where our company resides. Besides this cheese, we are working with other cheese companies as well, and we firmly believe that a sodium reduction of up to 40%, 40, will be possible. We also have a research program within our company ongoing to determine the best way to actually add the magnesium, because there's several methods. You can add it to the milk, you can add it to the curd, many different ways, and of course many different cheeses as well. So that's still ongoing work. But we firmly believe that in the future there will be a lot of cheeses that will contain magnesium.
I know that magnesium is good for muscle function, energy, bone health. So I'm thinking, can sodium reduction while using magnesium chloride can bring health benefits?
it's actually a win-win situation. You're reducing sodium on the one hand, and on the other hand, you're adding magnesium as well, which, well, as most people know, you don't get enough magnesium in your body. And we believe the best way to get more magnesium is through food and not through supplements, as most people nowadays use. So yeah, it's definitely an added bonus to use magnesium chloride as sodium reduction. We told you already about the sodium-reduced bread, sodium-reduced cheese. We are working in sectors such as the meat industry to reduce sodium in meat. So basically, a perfect breakfast sandwich is in the making.
Also with added magnesium. That's nice.
With added magnesium, yes, definitely.
And I have one last question for you. When looking ahead, what direction do you think sodium reduction is taking?
I think in the future, people are not talking about sodium reduction, but they are talking about, are my minerals in balance? So gain I enough sodium, gain I enough potassium? Do I have enough magnesium? Is my body enriched with the right minerals? I think that's the future. All minerals in balance.
Yeah, I can only agree with that, and I firmly believe that one of those minerals should be magnesium. And yeah, what better way to ingest it than through your regular daily food?
Okay. Well, thank you both for joining our discussion and for contributing to healthier products.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
Hi, Georgiana, and thank you very much for taking the time to meet me to discuss your academic findings from the bakery industry in relation to sodium reduction.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Okay, so let's get our audience to know you a little bit. And I want to do it a bit differently. Let's imagine you're on the cover of a top food industry magazine. What does it say about you?
Georgiana Gabriela Codina is a professor to the Ștefan cel Mare University, Faculty of Food Engineering, Romania. I have more than 20 years of experience in the food engineering field. My area of expertise are in bakery technology, especially sensory analysis. I have been published more than 100 articles in international journals. I have been proposed to OSIM 37 patents, 7 have been approved. I have been proposed 2 European patents, 1 have been approved. From my patents approved, 2 have been sold to the industry companies. I have been manager to 5 research projects, all in a bakery field, and I have been published 3 books in the bakery field.
Wow, that would definitely be a specialty magazine. I'm sure we could talk for hours about what you know, what you found out from your research. So, considering all this experience, where do you see the current trends heading in bakery? Is sodium playing a significant role?
In bakery, the current trends are products with a clean label, without additives, chemical compounds. Consumers are more educated now. They read the label, and a clean one will have an impact on their decision to buy a bakery one. It's a current trend to obtain bakery products with an improved nutritional value using proteins of a high quality, fibers, minerals, vitamins, also different seeds type, with benefits on consumer health, bakery products with a low glycemic index for diabetes, for the people who are suffering of diabetes. Of course, the bakery products with low sodium content is important since a lot of people are suffering of renal disease, cardiovascular disease, and salt. It's very salt. I mean sodium chloride. It's very consumed by the population more than is necessary, and that's why the European Union try to limit the consumption of sodium chloride to 6 grams on daily intake. But bread, even if does not have a high sodium chloride content, due to this fact that is the most consumed food in European Union and in the world, the population will take sodium chloride almost 25% from their daily intake, and that's why bread may be the main food in which we may reduce sodium in order to improve the population health. Uh, so it is a mandatory for industry and country government to collaborate and to try to reduce sodium from bakery products.
Exactly as you're saying, the increased sodium consumption is connected to cardiovascular disease, renal diseases. So indeed, it should be a priority to reduce it. So technically speaking, how is this addressed in bread?
In bread, it's not so easy to replace sodium chloride because it not only offers salty taste and improves bread sensory characteristic, but also it presents technological effects which are difficult to be replaced. Sodium chloride is one of the raw materials in bread making, and it increased dough ability. It decreased dough softening. It improves gases capacity to be formed during fermentation and presents effects on loaf volume, on bread color, on yeast activity, on bread flavor, and so on. So it's not very easy to be replaced. But nowadays, different strategies are exist, and one of them are the substitute of sodium chloride with other salts like magnesium chloride, potassium chloride, which has similar effects on technological behavior during bread making, but it cannot substitute the salty taste that only sodium from sodium chloride salt may give to the final product.
Okay, so you outlined a few methods that could be used in reducing the sodium content. Based on your studies, what are the most effective methods to successfully achieve the sodium reduction content in bread?
Well, I did some researches on sodium reduction in bread, and I used different ingredients supplied by different companies, like the salt from the Dead Sea with a low sodium content, which is a mix between sodium chloride, magnesium chloride, and potassium chloride. Also, I used dry sardow from another company, which give flavors to the bread, and of course potassium chloride, and dry fermented sugar, which with many flavors, including umami ones, which give good results to the final sensory taste of the bread. My best results was a mix between the sea from the dead sea, the salt from the Dead Sea with a low sodium content, with dry sardow and the fermented sugar. With this mix, I succeed to reduce the sodium content from almost 400 sodium in bread to almost 80. And I have obtained bread with good technological characteristics and good sensory one, which have been accepted by the consumers.
Thank you for sharing your secret mix. I mean, not so secret because it's a public research. Now, what advice would you have for food developers out there that are aiming to reduce sodium?
Well, the best results have been obtained by a gradual reduction of sodium chloride from bakery products, but this sodium chloride reduction cannot be very high due to its technological effect on the biological behavior. The population may accept a bread with a low sodium chloride content in time. They can adapt to the bread, but this reduction may not exceed 25% from the initial sodium chloride. My experience demonstrated that using different types of sardow may improve bread sensory quality and also increase consumers' acceptability due to the fact that this may also help to the industrial companies to obtain bakery products with a traditional aspects, also flavor, and these flavors may help them to decrease the sodium chloride from their recipe.
A lot of useful insights here. I have one last question. Looking ahead, what direction do you think sodium reduction is taking?
The sodium reduction is mandatory due to the European Union directives and due to the label of food products, which is mandatory to have sodium labeled. And I think the producer will decrease their sodium chloride from their product in order to satisfy the consumers. And they will try to use different ingredients provided by different companies to reduce their sodium chloride from their recipe. They cannot replace totally sodium chloride because sodium has such a high impact on sensory characteristics of food, but they will try to replace it in a high amount, of course, depending on consumer acceptance.
Thank you very much, Georgiana, for sharing your expertise and for giving advice to all the food developers out there trying to reduce sodium content.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation.